Welcome back to Yanks Abroad. Today we have an amazing Americans Abroad update, as well as some Premier League roundup, as well as touching on all the hot topics that came from the Cup final over the weekend. And today, we're going to start it off with the Americans Abroad update because it was that good. Will, any initial thoughts before I get into it?
Johnny Cardoso will be in the midfield for the first match of the Copa America. That's my take after watching him for the last month and capping it off with his best performance so far this past weekend.
Wow. Big take. I mean,
big take.
Gio Reyna is playing himself out of every midfield. So, all right. American Abroad's update. This could be our best Americans Abroad update to date. In Italy, Weston McKennie stole the show as he had 2 assists to Vlahovic in their 3-2 win, but unfortunately went off with a dislocated shoulder that match as well, and Weah was used as a substitute. Pulisic started, and Musa was a sub in Milan's 1-1 draw over the weekend. And over to England, where Gio Reyna, as we touched on, has now been with Forest for 5 matches and only played a total of 38 minutes as he was an 81st minute sub in their 4-2 loss to Villa. And it's kind of a nightmare for Gio thus far, as he seems to just be a garbage time down 4-2 usage case for them.
He's barely even getting in at all, let alone if the match is close.
In better news, though, in England, Chris Richards got his first Premier League goal for Palace with a beautiful header, which he attributed to his afro. I'm a big fan of the afro and Chris Richards as a potential starting option for the U.S.
Yep.
Anthony Robinson played the full 90 and had a beautiful goal line clearance in Fulham's 2-1 win at Old Trafford. And finally, in England, Austin Trusty played the full 90 at center back for Sheffield United in a back 5 or 3, however you want to call it. In France, Ballo is finally back. Balogun got on the score sheet for Monaco in their 3-2 win, which is amazing to see after his extreme tough run of form he's been going through. Over to Germany, where Brendan Aronson got his first Bundesliga start in over a month and scored a hilarious goal where he essentially, luckily, got deflected off of his back and into the back of the net. But it is now 2-2 for Brendan, so any way you can get him, we'll take him. A little confidence for him. Elsewhere in Germany, P. Falk also found himself on the score sheet for Mönchengladbach in their 5-2 victory, where Scally played all 90 at left back, interestingly enough. And then in Spain, as Will touched on, Johnny Cardoso grabbed his first goal for Betis, which was an absolute rocket in their victory. And finally, finishing up in Netherlands, as we do, where the PSV boys balled out again with Tillman and Dest both picking up assists, Pepe with a goal. And Brendan wasn't the only Aronson scoring this weekend, as Paxton got his first European goal for Vitesse, the 20-year-old finally getting some run as he is on loan in the Dutch league now. Just an unreal weekend for the Americans.
So good.
Yeah.
It would have been perfect if McKennie didn't dislocate his shoulder, but I read something that was like, yeah, this happens to him sometimes, and like he may not miss any time. He could miss a couple months. Like apparently his shoulder just pops out. So
never heard that before.
I've never either.
That
it might
gives
just
me good
be
comfort.
An American soccer thing. I know everyone thinks Americans are terrible at soccer, but apparently our shoulders can withstand dislocations. So,
amazing. Yeah, it's going about as good as it can go, outside of maybe a Pulisic goal at the weekend. What is your midfield then with Cardoso? Because Tyler Adams continues to return to match fit. Well, not continues to, but is on his way back to match fitness. So he'll be ready for the summer, it seems.
My thing with Cardoso is like he's the kind of presence in the American midfield that I don't think we've ever had in a player, where he has the athleticism, he has the passing range, but he also plays with a very nice tempo. He lets the game come to him, whereas I love Tyler Adams, but he's aggressive. He's going to come at you. He's going to go for every tackle. He's not going to keep the play in front of him always. He's aggressive, and that's great. Cardoso seems to kind of have the calma of a Spanish midfielder almost, and I think that's why he went to Betis. I think that's why he's been a great fit there, but he really lets the game come to him in so many ways. He's a great transition starter with his passing range. I just think he allows, if he were to play as a 6, it allows McKennie, it allows Musa, these guys who are excellent ball carriers who really like to bring the ball from the first third to the third third on their own foot, to have that kind of freedom if they know Johnny Cardoso is kind of sitting behind them. So that, to me, just makes it very interesting. I think it'll be a match-by-match basis, and obviously Berhalter has his guys he likes, but if he continues to play this way for Betis, I just can't imagine a way in which, at the very least, he's not a crucial part of our Copa America team this summer.
Do you see a world where, with Weah getting a ton of minutes at right wing back and Jedi doing really well in the attack, where we potentially go to a back five so that we can include a more narrow system and more midfielders like up through with Jedi and Weah out wide?
I mean, I like the idea of that. We haven't really seen Berhalter do it all that much, so it's just hard for me to think, like, especially with the national team, I feel like they don't play with formations as much because obviously they're not training as often. But I think it's good to know that if you're going to play way out right wing, he's developing more defensive acumen, more defensive responsibilities, especially with knowing that Jedi loves to get forward so much.
And especially with the fact that we're going to be playing some real talent this summer our wingers are
This isn't the fucking Gold Cup.
Our wingers are going to have to defend or else it could get ugly against, obviously, the likes of Brazil and Argentina. But, yeah, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves as we have Berhalter as our coach and we currently don't even have a goalkeeper. But, like, we're obviously not a favorite. But
to say fifth favorite, maybe.
For the World Cup?
Oh, no, for the Copa America.
Oh, no. I was saying the World Cup.
Oh, okay.
I was looking ahead. Like, it's just nice to know that for once, like, it should be, we're going to be a favorite, and, like, it would be a real disappointment if we didn't get out of our group, rather than we've looked at previous tournaments to where it's not a success if we get out of our group, but, like, that's a great, like, that's benchmark number one.
Correct.
That we need to complete. And then everything after that is kind of like, we'll take it if it comes, but coming up, it feels like if we don't get out of the group, like, shit will hit the fan.
I mean, we're hosting the fucking World Cup.
Yeah, but you can host it. Qatar hosted the World Cup, and they had no fucking chance.
All right, but I think with all the strides that it's not like Qatar's made all these strides. Like, we've made huge strides in the game in the last 20, 25 years. I mean, we have to win at least one knockout match, or I think it's a complete failure.
I agree.
We have to win the group so you get an easier first knockout match.
And it's an expanded
World
field.
Cup, yeah.
So, in theory, like, in previous tournaments, pretty much every knockout match was a pretty serious match. Like, depending on how we do in the group, we could get a pretty favorable next round.
I mean, and obviously we should have 80,000 fans behind us.
Well,
I mean, it should be ruckus in any match that we play. It should be incredible. And then obviously, as you mentioned, the Eredivisie boys. I mean, Malik Tillman is incredible. I'm as big on Malik Tillman as I've been on any U.S. men's national team player ever. He to me is like Cardoso. Like, we're starting to develop profiles that we've never had before for our country. We've always had wingers who are speedy, who are technical, because that really is an athletic amount of things. But, like, Tillman is the kind of profile where, like, that person, American, usually is not choosing to play soccer. He's big, strong, fast. He's a basketball player playing soccer, which is huge for us. Yeah. And he's also so technically gifted. He's very creative. He's got the IQ to play as a number 10. He can play out on the wings. He's massive. Yeah,
I also think that's a result of something we've kind of been going back and forth on, of, like, rushing people to Europe. But I also think you don't find these different types of profiles without them being brought up. Like, we're not capable, as of right now, of bringing that profile up.
No.
Like that you're talking about. You learn that in Europe, which I think is why there is a big rush to get people over there, but it is a balance of the right time.
Well, also, to me, it's like, it's great to get our best prospects over there if they're going to go over there when they're 12.
Right.
But going over there when they're 17, not as helpful.
Right. Because then you're thrown into the first team.
Correct.
Right away.
If you're going there to be in an academy, which I think a lot of our best players either were not necessarily U.S. born and played in academies, or were U.S. born and went over there younger, like Pulisic, who went over to Dortmund before 16. Mm-hmm. That allows you to learn those sides of the game at your formative years. Yep. It's hard to learn that when you're 17. There's multiple different managers potentially coaching you. It's not the same structure as an academy. Which is obviously massive.
Because at 17 and once you get older, like, you're just fighting for your life to get into the team.
Right.
Whereas when you go into the academy, it's almost encouraged, not almost, it's encouraged to just continue learning and building on your craft. Once you're in the first team, as much as they want you building on your craft, it's either you're performing or you're not.
Correct.
And you're not getting in the team.
100%.
So, yeah, things are going amazing.
Just need a goalie.
I
wish Petrovic was American because I know he played in the MLS. So, like, that would have worked perfectly. But, I mean, again, I keep bringing up Slonina. Everyone says he's amazing. Chelsea as well. Maybe eventually he's our World Cup goalie. Who knows?
All right. Well, EFL Cup.
Kind of a boring final.
I actually completely disagree. I think if you're And I think that would be, if any Europeans are out there watching, they would be really mad at you for that take. Because I think the true soccer purists or football purists in that sense can understand that that was a really exciting final despite no goals.
It had some really exciting 10-minute periods, but it had some really dull 20-minute
But I feel like you're going to find that in every final. It's rare to be like back and forth goal.
100%.
Like, you know, like people take a couple minutes to like settle in and be like, let's get through this 10-minute stretch.
No, 100%. And obviously, Liverpool dealing with tons of injuries, Chelsea being Chelsea. There was some caginess to the match. The injury in the first half to Gravenberch didn't help anybody. Yeah. So, all
right, I have a quick rant, if you'll allow me.
I will allow it.
Speaking of the whole Europeans, specifically British people shitting on Americans talking about soccer, like, I have an announcement to make, and I think we may be smarter than 85 to 90% of Brits who talk about soccer. The discourse that was taking place on Twitter after the final / during the final was some of the dumbest shit that I've ever read. Mainly being, I have a list of things of why Brits are so fucking stupid, but mainly being, and this was, I checked the Twitter profiles, where they were from and everything. The discourse and the narrative that was being pushed that Klopp's kids beat Chelsea's first team essentially is like the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, the three most important players for Liverpool were two 30-year-olds, Endo and Van Dijk, and then Kelleher, who's 25. I understand he's a backup, but like people saying that they obviously brought on young kids in extra time, but those young kids that were brought on in extra time weren't the reason that they won the match by any stretch. Like, they scrapped their way into a corner, which Van Dijk ultimately put away because he's potentially the most dangerous center back on corner kicks in like history. But people are saying like Potts should be fired because he allowed Liverpool's children to beat them in a final, which is literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You could argue that in a final, when everyone's legs were dead, that bringing on a bunch of kids who grew up idolizing playing in a final in Wembley was more valuable just because of the pure effort that they're going to give and what it means to them than bringing on the likes of like a Mudryk or an Nkunku, who apparently had a neck injury during that game. Mudryk, who there's literally a war going on in his country. He doesn't give a fuck about a final in Wembley. Like, I just think that whole narrative that people were trying to push and then lumping Poch into it was so stupid. On top of the fact that Liverpool are first in the table in the Premier League. You could argue that they are the best team in the entire world when healthy. I understand that they weren't healthy for this game, so that may bring them, but they're still a top 10 team in the world that they put out there. And then Chelsea is in 10th place for a reason. They're not good. And they outplayed Liverpool for segments of the match. And if Kelleher doesn't make that save on Palmer from like 2 yards, like, this could look very, very different. And people are acting like it was a huge blunder that Chelsea didn't win this match. Like, Liverpool were clear favorites, and anyone else trying to push a different narrative, like, I think is so wildly stupid. Like, Chelsea doesn't win matches, certainly not against Liverpool. So why was that a narrative that was being pushed?
I mean, I think it's twofold. I think it's incredible that Klopp was, first of all, Klopp had no option. So, like, I'm not all about giving Klopp all this credit. Like, his whole bench was kids.
Correct.
So if he was ever going to make subs in a 120-minute match, they were going to be fucking kids.
And he was smiling, knowing that he had nothing to lose. Like, essentially, like,
right.
Oh, if we lost,
well, it was an
not
injury
my
crisis,
fault.
100%. But also, I'm not about the narrative that's like, well, if you look at it, Chelsea's starting 11 and the players on the pitch were younger. Well, their fucking kids all cost 100 million pounds. So there's a mix of both.
But the kids weren't the reason Liverpool won.
No, but like, it's also
Luis Diaz played 120 minutes. Endo played the entire game.
It's also
Van Dijk played the entire game.
Credit to the kids for not making any major mistakes.
They were all forwards, except Quansah was brought on literally at the end of the game.
Those two midfielders were brought in.
McConnell
and Clark are midfielders.
Yes.
Connor Bradley's a kid who was brought on.
But he's been playing kids.
Okay,
they're
but
talking about the substitutions that they were making.
All right, he's a kid.
He is a kid.
They started 3 players 21 years or younger.
Yeah.
Harvey Elliott's a kid. He may have 4 years of experience. It's two things. Everything's not so fucking drastic is what the answer is to the thing. Klopp, if you take it in the fucking presence of what it is Klopp had no options. Everybody's injured. He threw these kids on. They did great, but also Van Dijk's the reason they won. Van Dijk controlled the entirety of the match. Kelleher, yes, he's 25, But also, like, 25 for a goalkeeper is kind of, like, young. Like, most goalkeepers aren't massive.
And he hasn't played a ton of matches, 100%. So I'll give him credit there.
It's everything. It's a combination of 100 things. People just want to react. And obviously, fucking Liverpool fans want to be like, oh, we won as the underdog. Chelsea fans want to be like, your kids are just as young as our starting 11. Like, it was just a good match. Chelsea should have fucking won the game. It's the same thing they've been doing for fucking weeks now, which is Pochettino is, at this point, coaching this team as best as he can. What happens in the final third? There's nothing he can. Gallagher had a massive opportunity to score. Palmer had multiple massive opportunities to score. Nicholas Jackson, we don't need to talk about every week. Sucks. And Nkunku again was not healthy and not injured. Running. He looks injured. Like, he's not moving.
And also, a big thing that's being understated is in finals, like, the continuity of a team, and like, they are kids, but they've also, Klopp has been there for what, 10, 11 years? Is it even more?
2016.
Like, all right, so a little bit less, but nonetheless, they teach his system where the kids, like, the kids are obviously involved in first team training, and even in the academy, I assume they're teaching Klopp's system.
That's what the best academies do.
That's what academies do. So when you saw Nkunku brought on, and you saw Mudryk brought on, and their press was, like, Nkunku went to go press, and then it was 2 passes, and then they were out. And then Mudryk went to go press. Like, they had no clue what they were doing because they've been under Poch. They brought in 20 new players under a brand new manager, and they're 4 months in. Like, Klopp, they have a system. The kids came on, and they know exactly when they need to press. They know exactly where they need to go, and that's more valuable than anyone is giving any sort of credit to. Like, the fact that they just have a system that can be plug and play, and when it happens to be kids, it makes it a lot easier for these kids as opposed to these Chelsea guys who essentially have no clue what they're doing. And Kuku's played, 5 matches this entire season? Like, yeah, I mean, it was so disjointed.
More, it's less so credit to Klopp and more so, like, shows you how poorly Chelsea is run. Like, you can't just win by bringing 20 new players in there. And this is why I said a couple episodes ago about how Tottenham are X amount of windows away because you need to get rid of dead wood, you need to bring in new players. Like, you can't just get rid of 7 and bring in 7. That's not how structure works. Like, you need to have structure. That's how successful football clubs are built. That's how you win trophies. You don't win trophies by just throwing money. Look at Manchester United. No structure, no plan. They've thrown money around like crazy since Sir Alex left, and they haven't reached
nothing's worked.
Anything, right? So it's like Liverpool, Klopp has been brilliant. He has created structure. Arteta, it's coming. The trophies must be coming because he's created structure. Pep, think of how bad City were in that first year. Yeah. But Pep created structure. Obviously, he does it faster than anyone. That's why he's the greatest.
That's the problem with the media being so reactionary is people asking for Poch out. Like, first off, he gets no credit for bringing an awful Chelsea team to a final. That, like, no other manager.
I mean, the League Cup, honestly, biggest fucking joke.
Sure.
That's what I have to say.
It is the biggest joke until they get there, though, because then it means something.
The final means something. But, like, if you look at the pathways of these teams that make it every year, like Manchester United last year and Newcastle, like, they both made the final having not played any real. Newcastle beat somebody good. I can't remember. But United hadn't beat anybody.
I mean, everyone's involved in it, so the big teams had to have lost one way or another at some point.
Right, but nobody plays, like, even their second team. No, they play their third
understand. Team. But, yeah, the kid stuff just pissed me off because, by the way, there's so many better narratives that could have come from this. Like, Van Dijk single-handedly won a match between his defending the goal and just his overall captaincy and leadership. Like, when they were huddling at the start of extra time and at halftime of extra time, he's leading, he's talking to everyone, he's a demonstrative force, and you see the Chelsea bench was kind of like, Poch doesn't know if he's the one who should be rallying his players. They bring off Ben Chilwell because all he wants to do is fight the 12-year-olds. Like,
that was wild.
They're all so scattered, and Van Dijk bringing the team together. I mean, not that they need, like, Klopp has a good culture there, but, like, no one takes.
He's a leader.
He's a leader, and then that's one, and then you have the fact that you look at the price of Caicedo, Enzo, that midfield, and then the price of McAllister and Endo in that midfield, and the fact that they completely outplayed them is another narrative that no one wants to touch on. Like, I know the price of Chelsea players, and that has been touched on, but I think the fact that Liverpool were in direct competition with Chelsea for those certain players, midfielders, including Lavia, who didn't play, like, I think that's such a better narrative. I just think to the modern media or to the mainstream media, like, there was a huge miss by making it Klopp's kids versus Chelsea's first team.
Speaking of Klopp's kids, I have a question for you. As someone who doesn't cover academy football as closely as me and has a totally fresh look to this because I was having this debate with a few people. Yeah. What do you consider an academy kid? Because
I saw this. I saw this on Twitter.
kids.
Yeah.
One's from Celtic, who
15,
signed at 16. One's from Rangers, signed at 16. Harvey Elliott made his debut in the Premier League with Fulham at 16. What do you consider a true academy kid? What age do they have to be in the academy by to consider them an academy kid? Because I have a very clear answer.
I'm not a huge academy person, as you know, and as much as you are. I think if they played their first match for the first team, like Harvey Elliott played a Premier League match with a different club.
For Fulham.
Like, that is not
an academy.
That's not an academy player to me.
Okay, but what if they came from an academy outside the Premier League?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's an age cutoff for me. I think it's more just like, I would say probably 2 to 3 years in the academy would be my...
So, like, Garnacho was bought by Manchester United for a 6-figure fee when he was 16, then played a year in Manchester United's academy. Is he an Atletico Madrid academy kid or a Manchester United?
He played 1 year in the academy and then he was in the first team?
Yeah, he was on the bench a couple times in his first year with the academy, but when he wasn't, obviously, he wasn't playing.
If you're signed at 16 and on the bench, like, no, you're obviously not an academy player.
You're not a United. They consider United fans try to call him a United academy kid.
Yeah, no, not. It's not just if you played one match, like injured.
Right, like Martinelli played a few matches for Arsenal's
Lucas
academy.
Moura played for our fucking under 21s.
Well, like when we bought Martinelli from Brazil.
Yeah,
he played the first few months he was at Arsenal, he just to keep match fit and whatever, he was on the bench a bunch, but he also played a few matches for the academy.
No, I don't.
Some people consider him a Hale Ender. I obviously do not.
No, I think you truly have to have like no Premier League experience unless it was like a cup where it was 13
I agree.
Player.
I think it has to be, you have to sign for 16 when you're not, like, because you can't sign for X amount of like dollars usually.
Okay. Yeah. No, that I agree with. This whole like, they were in the academy a little because there wasn't a ton of room in the first team, and then there's injuries, so they're like that. No. I'm not considering 100%. Academy. And the last thing I have on just people being stupid is the offsides call.
I was gonna ask. That was my next question.
Okay,
what are your thoughts?
It's a clear offsides.
Correct.
Yeah, and people are so stupid they can't separate the fact that they're like, that wasn't a real push. Like, that's not a foul. If that happened and he was in an onside position, that's a goal. He's affecting the play from an offside position.
It's nothing to do with the foul. It's not a foul. He's offside. That's the call.
And people, for the life of them, can't seem to understand that.
People are showing videos of corner kicks being like, look, they do this on corner kicks. Well, there's no offside. The ball's on the end line.
Yeah, like, oh my God. I just like...
And honestly, Jamie Carragher, who I used to think was one of the best pundits, has dove into this like area of pundit like Gary Neville and Rio Ferdinand, where he's just trying to like bait people.
Yeah.
And he's like sharing clips of Arsenal doing the same thing, but the ball's not in play yet.
I mean, it's
embarrassing.
It's insane that people couldn't separate the fact that like the actual push was not a foul, but you're affecting the play from an offsides position, and people were like, "Oh, he's not the one that headed it in." But the fact that the person who headed it in was blocked off, his marker was blocked off by the person that was in an offside position, is like, for me, the most simple thing to understand in the entire world. Yeah, that was my final point on just like, I'm not taking any more shit from Brits saying that we don't know, like the discourse that I saw taking place on Twitter was some of the dumbest things.
It still is taking place. It's crazy. People can't
good thing I've been off Twitter.
Liverpool fans can't get over an offside call in a match that they won. It's crazy.
Insane. It's one of the more, it's not like clear because you do have to look into it and like figure out, oh, he's an offside.
It took me a few watches of the replay. 100%.
Once you see it and you understand what the call is, like it is super obvious, non-debatable.
100%. All right, moving on.
Yeah, to the Prem. Let's start at United. We called it
shit.
We said they're fucking atrocious. They are atrocious. We said that their form was going to regress to how their performances have. They got absolutely dominated from start to finish. I watched every single minute, put my phone down, completely locked into it because I really, truly wanted to see, like, is what we are saying as true as what we're believing? And it couldn't have. I mean, Fulham walking into Old Trafford and dominating a game from start to finish was like shocking to me. It was not even close. Fulham, I actually don't know what the XG turned out to be. And I know Man United created a couple chances that'll probably skew the XG, but just eye test, they dominated that match. And then I was looking through their lineup. Their players, they just are not a good. Their team
Manchester
sucks.
United?
The players are awful. I mean, they brought in...
It's a club that was... This whole squad was built with absolutely no philosophy.
I mean...
There's no... Because... First of all, the reason they're getting dominated is because Ten Hag's system is absolutely ludicrous. It's a mix of his buildup, which inquires the center backs to pull so far wide and the fullbacks to invert that when they lose the ball, there's just nobody in the middle of the field because the fullbacks need to come back wide. The center backs are worried about trying to mark. So your middle third of the pitch is completely empty. And then you have an aging Casemiro with no legs
I was about to say.
Trying to cover so much fucking ground. Like that, even Declan Rice can cover that much ground.
I was about to say, to what you're describing, that system probably needs the greatest workhorse of a 6 that you've ever had.
Not a 34-year-old.
Casemiro, it honestly pains me because I truly think we've seen this in football a couple of times, like quarterbacks playing a couple too many seasons and people having recency bias of like, I feel like this is going to affect Casemiro's legacy and I really don't want it to.
I feel like it won't because like, nobody outside of England gives a fuck about Manchester United at this point.
That's probably
And like when
true.
you look back at it, it's gonna be one of those things like you forgot Casemiro even played for United. He's had such little impact. It's just insane. And then the other issue is then when they're out of possession and they're pressing so far up the pitch with such little work effort. So they're just trying to man-to-man press with it's not zone. They're not forcing the ball. All the best presses in the world are forcing the ball into the weakest point of the opposition and then forcing that person to play long.
Right.
That is the exact opposite of what Manchester United are doing. They're trying to man-to-man press with absolutely no forcing into one specific place. And what kept happening is Fulham are so brilliant at winning second balls. And because Manchester United have basically their first 6 players, everyone but the back 4, so far up the pitch, that once they play that long ball, they've just got a free midfielder, often Iwobi, just winning that second ball and creating chances. It's free shots on goal. And they just kept ripping and ripping and ripping. And eventually the goals are coming. And that's why Manchester United are going to lose so many matches. Like they're giving up they've given up 16 plus shots more than anybody in the Premier League so far this year. More than Sheffield United, more than Luton, more than West Ham, 14 times in 26 matches.
And those are teams that like are
the worst in the Premier League history.
Bad.
Sheffield United this year may be the worst team in Premier League history.
Ever. And Man United is worse than them.
Worse.
That speaks volumes.
The only difference between them and Sheffield United is they have world-class finishers who are going to score goals because that's what world-class finishers do. Like, it's actually embarrassing.
And in theory, as much as I love Anthony Robinson, like, he sometimes looks like his feet are on opposite, his cleats are on opposite. Like, if you had to press, get it to Anthony and then press, like, he's not going to be able to play out of the press.
100%. That's literally what all the best structures do. You force it to the weakest. Like what we did to beat Liverpool is we kept forcing the ball onto Van Dijk's left foot. He had to make his pass. Right. He's a great passer, but his left foot ain't nearly as strong as his right foot's one of the best center back passing right foots in the world. And then we did the same thing when Joe Gomez was playing left back. Get the ball, make sure we force it to Joe Gomez. He's at left back where the ball is going to often be on his left foot. Make him make passes with his left foot. That's how we win the ball back so quickly. Manchester United have no philosophy. They have no concept of what they're trying to do. The players are all operating on different wavelengths. It's a complete disaster in every single way.
I also looked, because I looked at the starting 11 and I was like, this just can't be Man United's starting 11. There is no quality throughout it. And then I was like, all right, there must be some injuries that I'm like forgetting about. I looked through the entire squad. The team is awful. And then I was like, I know they've been having trouble with the owners. Have they been spending? And then I look at the money they've spent and the quality that's in their team.
Complaining about the owners is insane.
I'm like, how? This could not have gone more wrong. They've spent so much money and they have no quality throughout their team.
They're starting a fucking 18-year-old kid over their $120 million Anthony.
And they start, right. That's what, I was
forcing.
Yeah.
Who's a good player. I've seen him play.
And the making Bruno Fernandes captain of Manchester United
He's a fucking clown.
Has to be the biggest low point of everything that's happened for Manchester United since Sir Alex has left. He is the epitome of a bitch. And you obviously saw after he took the shot that, oh my God, like nothing can work if Bruno Fernandes is your captain. There are a laundry list of problems with Manchester United, including Ten Hag, including Rashford's form, including 100 things. But at that top of the list is Bruno Fernandes. Wearing the armband for Manchester United is an absolute crime. And I think he's good. I don't think he's great.
One of the most overrated players.
I think he's fine.
Years.
I think he's good, but not captain quality at all. And Manchester United's lost throughout a match. Like, who's going to lift us up? Where are we going to find that answer? And you look at him, you might as well walk up the pitch.
They stripped fucking Harry Maguire of the captain's armband.
And he's been their best player.
You can check the fucking receipts. I have always been pro Harry Maguire.
He's their best player. Yeah, and then I was looking at injuries, and I was like, oh, like Lisandro's injured. Like, they wouldn't be better off with him in the team.
Bro, he's also so overrated.
He's awful. They would not be better with him at left center back.
He's a better left back than he is a left center back. I mean,
the problem, so this leads me to my next question, which are Man United in the worst position of any top 6 team going forward? So you immediately throw out Arsenal, you immediately throw out City, and then you start to consider, you don't want to include Liverpool, but like Salah could potentially be leaving, Van Dijk's getting older, and Klopp's leaving. So that's one option. You have Tottenham, who I wouldn't include, but if you want to, you can, because they have vision.
Of a project with a vision.
And then Chelsea. So between Chelsea, Liverpool,
it's not even close. Here's the difference. At the very worst, Chelsea have like $100 million players.
But if they keep they're gonna run into an issue financially, no matter how much money Bowley has.
Like, how many times have we said that about Chelsea? And the one thing that ever happened is they had a 2-window transfer ban, and then they won the Champions League the next year.
Yeah, true. Which is crazy.
Like, the way, and also you have to remember, like, academy is a huge part of this, and Chelsea's academy is great. It always has been. They always have 30 players on loan. Yeah. 3 of them hit. Chelsea just has a great academy. Manchester United need to start using their academy more. They need to get a new manager in. Manchester United need to get rid of Ten Hag at the end of this year. They're bringing in new football director. Yep. They're bringing in new ownership. This is a chance for a fresh start.
I just don't know where they go. I can't see.
You bring in Ruben Amorim from Sporting, and you start a new project.
It looks like a minimum 5-year project before they can start to think about competing for anything.
I mean, that's what ours was, 5-year project, and now we started competing.
It's
a brutal road.
See. Yeah.
Here's the thing: is you can't keep fucking putting tape on a leak.
Yeah.
It will just break.
Yeah, they need to gut the entire system.
Sure, they won a League Cup last year, but nobody even remembers that.
I honestly didn't until you.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's not going to do anything for anybody. Like, especially if you're Manchester United, you need to be competing for Premier Leagues. You need to be competing for Champions Leagues. Pretty much nothing else matters. If you win an FA Cup and you compete for the Premier League, that's great. But you need to be in the name.
Even when you go into a rebuild, like Arsenal has and Tottenham is right now, like, you have a couple pieces where you're like, we have a core. These 3 people can carry us through this rebuild. I don't know where you're getting that.
I mean,
I guess
Mainu is Mainu,
Højlund. Like, Bruno Fernandes isn't a centerpiece.
He's on the way.
They need to strip him.
Way out. Yeah. No, I mean, it's really them two. I mean, Rashford can be a part of that core. He can be. He's young enough, and he's good enough.
He can. He definitely can.
In the right system, even Lisandro can be a part of that core for now. They will eventually move on from him, but you have enough pieces where you can correctly structure this team. I mean, come on. We're talking about a team that's worth over $1 billion in terms of the amount of money that's been spent on them.
But that's the scariest thing.
I agree, but also at the same point, like, you can get results. Like, when Arsenal was going through rebuild, the team wasn't worth $500 million. It was fucking Mustafi and Socrates. Right. Like, there's enough squad talent here with the right coach and the right tactics. Play counterattacking. That's what they're best at, Manchester United. Sit back. Let the teams come to, like, as much as I thought...
Yeah, which Ten Hag will refuse to do.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, as much as I never believed in Ole, at least what he saw with the squad was, we do not have the structure, nor the ability, nor the right profiles to be a high-pressing team. We're going to sit back and let Rashford just dominate on the break. And he got enough results. He competed in Champions Leagues. I mean, he came second in a Premier League.
Well, what do you think market value for, like, Antony is right now?
The issue with market value for him is, like, his wages are so high that, like...
Right. You can't even...
How can you even... They're going to basically have to do what Arsenal had to do, which is you have to just buy people out and get their wages off the books, even if it's one large sum at once. Just get them off the books so you can restart the structure.
I feel like they'll struggle to, like, eat those bullets.
It's a disaster.
Yeah.
All right, last but not least, we'll touch on Arsenal, Newcastle, and I guess City, Bournemouth a little bit. Arsenal had an easy win, absolutely dominated Newcastle. Yeah. Eddie Howe maybe on the way out at Newcastle. I'm not really sure.
I think he can hang his hat on enough. I mean, it's tough for Newcastle. The injuries that they've had are serious. And then their centerpiece transfer that they brought in to essentially take that next step of we're a Champions League team, we're going to bring in a big summer signing, day one is out. Like that is extremely tough. Like I think a lot of things were being built behind a Tonali and Bruno midfield,
yeah.
and then that gets stripped, and then you are littered with injuries, especially in the defense. You've seen it struggle a lot, and they're leaking goals.
And Loris Karius had to make his first Premier League start in over 2,000
he
days.
actually, for the scoreline, he actually
He was
did look
good.
bad.
He made a great save on the first goal that should not have ended up being a goal.
Yeah.
It was an incredible
so,
save.
I take a ton of credit for Arsenal's recent run of form. So, everyone, you're extremely welcome that I jinxed myself essentially into making Arsenal score goals. So first off, you're welcome. And to all our Arsenal fans, you're all welcome. I take credit for that. And two, what I didn't account for in my calculations of them never being able to score a goal is
how good Havertz is.
I guess we'll touch on that. I'm unfamiliar with that. Is the thing that we talked about is everyone played a low block. We're willing to concede possession, make you break us down and score. What I didn't take into account is let's dive and create corner kicks enough to work extremely lethal and set pieces. And then that opens the game up. Teams are forced to play out.
Did you say we dive?
Teams are forced to then play out, and you're now losing, which opens up the space to allow you to score more goals. That was not in my original thinking. But, if Arsenal continues to score set pieces like that, it'll fix all
Best
the problems.
Best goal differential in the Premier League.
Yeah. I mean, the defending.
I've
never questioned the defensive.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
We've allowed 1.8 XG in 2024.
Yeah.
It's March.
It's actually insane.
The next closest is Man City, who have allowed 6.8.
Yeah, no,
I mean, the defending is legitimately historical, like almost Chelsea 04-05, allowing 18 goals in a whole season, levels of incredible.
No, it is really,
the last
really good.
2 goals we've given up in the Premier League are an own goal off of Gabriel's hand and Joe Willock scoring a header from his knees off of the far post and in, which was an incredible finish. Nice. Love Joe Willock, obviously. The only other thing I want to talk about with Arsenal, and we're not going to waste too much time on it because it was dominant, is Jorginho. And you fucking laughed at me. You laughed at me about Jorginho, but what he has brought to this Arsenal team is exactly what we were missing when Thomas Partey went out. Jorginho's vertical passing and his covering of space has allowed 2 things to happen. Number 1, it's allowed the likes of Martinelli, Saka, and whoever's playing as the 9 to get in behind and stretch the defense to a level that we were not able to do with a mix of Rice and Jesus as the 6 and center forward. It was a lot of Rice having to not be as aggressive as he used to be when he was at West Ham. He didn't have as much freedom. And yes, he's great as a 6, and I think his future is still as a 6. But it allowed Jorginho to play vertically, and it allows Rice to not have to be so cautious in his passing and play those breaking the lines passes that he has been so excellent at throughout his entire career, as well as being the controller and the dribbler that he has been for Arsenal in the last 6-7 matches, at least the last 2 matches that Jorginho has played in. And I am just blown away by what Jorginho's done. And what it shows me even more is when Thomas Partey is back, you're going to see Declan Rice go back into that 6, and then Thomas Partey is going to have the freedom and the ability to be the player that he is best at, which is playing neat little 1-2 passes and then playing vertical over the top. We've missed that so much, and we've missed that especially in the Champions League. This team is still going to go up one more level when Partey is back. I just cannot wait to see it.
So my question is, you're practically making out with Jorginho, but all to say that he'll get benched for Partey when he's back?
Yeah.
That's
how good this team is. There are matches where
it's not about the team. You're saying that's how good Partey is.
When Partey is healthy, there are very few midfielders in the world who can do what he can do. His combination of athleticism, his passing range, covering space, defensive acumen,
I'd rather have Pop Matarsar than Partey.
That's one of the worst fucking takes I've ever heard in my entire life.
I honestly think I'd get support from outside of Arsenal
You're
and
saying
Spurs
peak
fans.
Partey.
I think Chelsea, rest of Premier League fans.
Let us know in the comments if you'd rather have Thomas Partey or Pape Mate Sarr in your midfield right now. I don't think there's going to be a single non-Tottenham fan who would ever side with that.
And keep in mind when you're making that decision, ethics, the person as a whole, as well as the player on the pitch. I also think Jorginho is really quality due to how much he hates his girlfriend. Have you seen those clips?
So fucking funny.
It's so funny.
Everyone's like, that man can avoid a press in every single way.
That was actually such a good clip. Can we just go back to Havertz real quick? Why was he so good? I saw Granted, I did not get the chance to watch this match. I did watch the extended highlights, so I saw a lot of the important. I saw his miss, but that's not even what I was going to touch on, other than the fact that, like, that's a bad miss. And that's exactly what we talk about with Havertz is, like, he's not clinical enough. Like, he scored a tap-in. I understand he was involved in build-ups and...
Well, that's what I'm going to say. Like, the key about Havertz and what he brings to this side is a physical duel winner in every which way, which is what I was talking about before the goals were going in, and that's still all I care about. And he's so intelligent. Like, people forget that, like, when he was a young player at Leverkusen, we were talking about him like the next Mesut Ozil. Like, he was a creator. He was an intelligent footballer who received the ball in middle pockets in the half space.
He doesn't have that, like, technique and
He doesn't
quality.
have the technique, but what he has is the intelligence to pop up in the right spots. And he's so big that he drags defenders that allows so much space in behind for specifically Saka, who has been absolutely brilliant in 2024. But also it allows Odegaard to then pick out passes into the opposite side of the field. So a lot of what you're seeing is Havertz making in these runs, dragging two center backs. Then you've got Saka, who's now one-on-one with the left back, who never gets opportunities to be in one-on-ones. And also you have either Martinelli or Kivior, whoever's on that left side, in tons of space over there. It's just dragging defenders all over the place. And that's the key to our center forward signing in the summer. It doesn't have to even be Osimhen. I'd love for it to be Osimhen, but it needs to be an athletic specimen like a Havertz, who is so physical, who has enough pace, who has just the aura to be dragging players around.
By the way, you see Balogun, like, shredding players on the way, like...
That's what Balogun's great at, but he's also had 5 penalty kicks this year and only scored 1 of them. So
okay, well, Saka's a pen merchant, so it's perfect.
Saka's a pen merchant.
So it's perfect that if Balo was back into the side, that Saka could take the pens.
If there's one thing Saka's not, it's a pen merchant. That's like the one knock on Saka is that he's not great at pens, which I agree on. He needs to get better immediately. His most recent penalty was ugly. Even
so do we want to transition? I don't even think it's worth having the Foden-Saka debate because, like, where are we going to... Neither of us are going to change
I just want you to tell me what Foden's better at than Saka.
Well, someone broke down the statistical play, like, by actual minutes / like, meaningful minutes that Foden's played. Essentially, like, accounting for the fact that Foden doesn't start week in and week out like Saka did, and Foden's stats are better.
Here's the thing. Saka would start week in and week out for City every single week.
We already talked about this. That's not true.
It is true.
It's not. That's just not the way Pep works.
There are certain players who
there are no players who are good enough outside of Rodri that start.
Holland starts every week.
Holland sucks.
De Bruyne, when he's not injured, starts every week.
Holland sucks. He's making a big...
He's in the worst form of his life.
Let's go to the City game.
He's in the worst form of his life.
I think they just put in like a... I think Bournemouth is playing like pretty well right now.
I said they're flying, and then I looked at the table, and like obviously it doesn't look like they're flying, but the football they're playing,
they're playing well, and like on the road, like I think that was just a very mature, like Pep.
I mean, they had tons of opportunities. They should have scored a goal.
Yeah, I just think like that's what title-winning teams do. Like, it's not going to make headlines that they won 1-0, but like that just seems like a very Pep style Man City champion team winning.
See, I actually feel differently. I think this is the City team that has given up the most counter opportunities that I've ever seen.
No, they definitely
did not see that
vulnerable.
game out as strongly as they used to. They used to just pass the ball around. Nobody would touch the ball. That would be it. Like, that isn't the control that they have anymore. I think
Is it lazy and stupid to say that they may be a little bored and the hunger isn't there?
It's not lazy and stupid. I think that's like a conversation, but at the same time, like, they're in a massive title race, so I kind of think that wouldn't be the case.
Yes, and as natural competitors, like, I'm never going to doubt how much they want to win, but like, have they won the Prem 3 straight years?
They've won 3 straight and 4 of the last 5, yeah.
Right. Like, there does come to a point where, like...
No, but that's why they bring in new players.
I know, and that's the thing that I think they're like, Vardiol didn't turn out to be the week in.
What's the difference between Gvardiol and Kivior right now? Nothing. Kivior's better right now.
I mean,
I'd rather have
Vardiol barely plays.
He's not good. He's been playing terribly.
He's
been getting dragged around.
Doku, outside of the first 5 to 7 matches he played, has been awful. Like, and Kovacic, who I thought was a great...
Dare we say Pep talent ID is on the down?
I mean, I think I don't know. I feel like the Doku transfer, like, wasn't a traditional City
No, they needed to get a 1v1
Yeah.
winger in, and that the market isn't great right now. We've been talking about it. There's not a huge market for left wingers.
And yeah, Kovacic hasn't been the Gundogan replacement that
And Nunez hasn't really.
And Nunez is
I'm a big fan, but he has not hit the ground running the way I thought.
Like
he would.
they are essentially they got rid of like Mahrez and Gundogan and like didn't replace them, and I think it's almost that much more impressive that they're still going to win the title and like pretty much got no reinforcements.
Relax.
You don't think they'll win the title?
No, I'm saying relax. That is all that much more impressive. Like they couldn't get any more impressive than winning the treble last year. Like they're expected to win.
No, it's not more impressive, but I think it is a unique impressiveness that
Pep
they've been able to do what they're doing. This, especially with De Bruyne and Haaland's injuries.
100%. Haaland's in the worst form of his career to date. He's in the worst form.
I should have made my this wouldn't have been as hot as my Martinelli take, but I should have made my Haaland take similar to my Martinelli take. That would be his greatest output for the rest of his career.
Yeah, but that's not as hot of a take.
No, it's not because he set records.
Yeah,
but my Martinelli take is going to age like fine wine.
The problem with your Martinelli take is like it could be another 5 years before we know the answer.
I know.
Right.
Well, we're going to be doing this podcast till we die.
Correct.
So once he retires and I was correct, I expect a gift of rightness from you.
You got it. Done. All right.
Yeah.
That's another episode of Yanks Abroad. Make sure to show us some love, give us a like, hit that subscribe button. Find us on TikTok and Instagram if you want some of the short form clips broken up even shorter for you. Big Americans Abroad week. We'll be off next week, but we'll be back later in March with a little bit of a new plan and some more fun content for you all. Peace.